G'day, welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by Old Man Hurston, Algared. How you doing?
As I keep saying, I am alive.
Yeah. One day when you turn up and say, I'm dead, it's gonna really freak me out.
Your rumors that I'm alive are
Yeah,
vastly overrated. Yeah.
just-
Something along those lines.
Yeah. All right, so apparently we've got an ISC to watch on 4.0. This thing has got a lot of views in a very short period of time, so I'm assuming that it's quite good. So we'll see how it goes.
All but it's very clickbaity, and everyone is hanging for 4.0, and
Jared doing clickbait, that'll be a first, but we'll see. All right, it looks very pyro from the thumbnail. I can't really tell anything else. Yeah, I kind of expected this to kind of be held over a little bit for CitizenCon. So if this is what we're getting here, I can't imagine what we're going to get CitizenCon. So maybe it's a spoiler. All right,
maybe it's a precursor to what we're getting in CitizenCon.
Yeah,
because we do know they were looking at. I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty certain they were looking at doing Squadron and focusing on Squadron.
It could be a bit.
And I think that's what Gala was. And if the Gala got bumped because they weren't really ready for it. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going, well, what are we putting in? And
I think it'll just be a little bit like last year. It was a bit of both, really. Let's be honest, it was a bit of both. All right, here we go.
By this point, it's pretty safe to say that all of you watching now know that Pyro is the next star system upcoming to the Star Citizen Persistent Universe in the upcoming Alpha 4.0. And 2 weeks ago, we started ISC's journey through the jump point to get there. And it's a good one. You should check it out if you haven't already. But what is there actually to do in the Pyro system once we get there? It's not all just pandemonium and chaos. To start, nearly every mission type and every gameplay system we've developed for Stanton works there as well. That means a life of cargo, salvage, mining, bounty hunting missions, and more are already ready to go due to their systemic development. But that's just the head start. There are also a number of new mission types, gameplay systems, and wholly unique experiences that arrive with Pyro and Alpha 4.0, and we'll be spending the next several weeks discussing them.
I don't know if you heard, but I just kind of heard the Algared. I heard the breaking of the dam because server missions coming on. That's kind of what I heard, unless you heard something different.
Yep, along with bounty missions and proper bounty missions and Yep.
All right.
Starting this week with What We Do in Space, where we're talking about a new kind of space station built with the more efficient level design lessons learned in Stanton. A brand new, ongoing, never stopping, never quitting contested zone system that'll reward you more and more the longer you can hold it. And a sneak peek at asteroid bases that'll require both ship and FPS combat combined to overcome and explore for its rewards. Let's find out.
Did you also hear that they've got the contested space station?
Yep, I heard that.
You have to fight for. So, and that's not really new. That's something that's been in the works or planned.
God, I can't remember when we first heard about that. That's a throwback.
I can remember hearing it way back in 2014.
Yeah,
it was commonly talked about. We will have this, and the old fight for the Idris was almost a precursor to that idea.
Well, even what they're talking about, the updated mission system and stuff like that, these are all things that were planned that have just been held up for so long because of server meshing. So yeah,
indeed.
So let's start with space stations.
So in Pyro, we have 12 space stations. One of them is the jump point station that you arrive at, coming from Stanton.
When you arrive in the gas cloud, you can't see every part of the station. It's impossible. In your cockpit, you're just gonna see like a bit of it. And then when you get closer, you're gonna see like, oh, yeah, that's huge.
They are quite a bit bigger and more involved than you would find.
I have to go back. Can you tell what ship that is?
Nope.
I'm pretty sure that's a new ship. Unless I'm seeing things. You tell me if I'm wrong, and let us know in the comments if we're wrong, but that looks new to me.
And I see like a bit of it, and then when you get closer, you're gonna see like, oh, yeah.
It's got two wings. Like, That's the advanced starter ship from the silhouette video.
And the engines say that it's Crusader.
That could be too. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, sorry. That's why we stopped it, because
Yeah, that's huge.
eye for detail. So and if that's it again, it almost looks like a Polaris Algared, but smaller. It's weird. Anyway, teased.
They are quite a bit bigger and more involved than you would find in Stanton.
The exteriors are very aggressive looking. They're very spiky. There's an almost fractal nature to it.
The space stations are owned to like different like factions, so you can see like the factions and brands.
They've really upped the debris, haven't they, Algared?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite significantly. But it also looks cleaner. I know that sounds weird, but like the older images of this station, well, the Pyro one specifically, didn't look as clean. But I noticed in that opening shot, it was very crisp. Yeah.
Now, with that debris, are we going to be able to clear some of that away? Are we going to be able to?
I hope so. I hope you can move it and stuff.
Yeah, I'd hope you could salvage it or move it or trash it, or because I can't see any station, any people keeping that up unless they're using it as a minefield or.
Yeah, it'd be
yeah.
really annoying for ships at the very least, wouldn't it? If they're fully solid and stuff. Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to continually have it there. And I know that base has got lots of junk, but I could see there'd be moves to try and clean it up, or at least clean up the passageways you were using. So yeah.
On top of some of the stations, and then you can see like, oh, if like rough and ready, you're gonna have problems.
The Rough and Ready gang is one of our main operators in the Pyro system. Almost every single rest stop refueling station is going to be run by Rough and Ready. They started off back in 2939 when this enforcer named Rook had enough. He had this great plan about how they could take over the fuel operations in the system, and the ruling council of the headhunters deemed that it was too risky. But a lot of other people had gotten wind of Rook's plans, and so he ended up splintering off and kind of forming his own gang. Rook decided to take on this symbology of Rest and Relax, which is a known refueling station, and kind of do their own spin on it. And they took the double R and they became Rough and Ready. While they're totally down to defend their territory and they're not going to take any BS from anyone who's opening fire or hurting their business, they also don't get dragged unnecessarily into conflict.
Each of the 12 stations will have a unique exterior, and some of the ones will be Starlight Service Station, Obituary, a very happy name, Gaslight, but maybe that's not what it's really called, and Megumi Refueling, which is not as easy as it sounds to say. And of course there's Checkmate Station, which is a little bit different to how you may have seen it in Pyro Playground and CitizenCon, and there's also Ruin Station.
What sets Ruin apart? It's the big LEO. It was originally Checkmate that you would have seen in Pyro, but it's been greatly expanded. It has...
I was just noticing there that they're like in the tech preview, they were all essentially exactly the same station.
Yeah.
So they actually have gone back and given all like their own individual makeovers, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And they did say that, or hint that at the beginning when they said, they've learned how to do stations from Saturn, and now they've expanded and making them a lot more unique. And
like you were saying, we were saying about the debris. They've essentially added all that debris to the tool set. That would have to be a part of it, surely. So yeah. Interesting.
But even the station looks like one of those looked like a scaled down Jericho station. So you've got.
Do you see what I mean about the cleanliness though? Like they seem, they're still messy, but they're not cluttered like they were. It's really like almost like you were trying to say, like people wouldn't put up with the mess that'd still be livable. See what I mean? You know what I mean? Like I don't know how they've done it. It's the same as this shop. It's cleaner, but it's still dirty. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just not as cluttered. It had like a lot of needless stuff in the way. Like they just have a beam going across the walkway. Yeah, they don't have that anymore.
The rubbish seems to be more pushed to the side rather than... strewn over the main thoroughfare type.
Like it's lived in. Yeah, yeah.
Significantly revised and enlarged interior with much more gameplay opportunity.
When you arrive in a Pyro space station, you'll recognize some of the activities that you already do in Stanton to be done there as well.
They have the same facilities, things like weapon shops, food courts, hangars.
You have direct access from your hangar to the cargo deck, and that's where you can buy your commodities or sell them, and then you can return right away into your instance hangar and then go off on your trip. From there, you can also access the external freight elevators to easily load your whole seas, and so we've made this gameplay looks much less tiring in Pyro.
And in Ruin Station, we'll have something called the Ghost Arena, which we'll let you discover for yourselves.
So a contested zone.
Oh, I like that water. That's interesting.
Design-wise, we are likening them to kind of a classic MMO dungeon. Instead of the primary way of accessing this content being behind missions, we are taking more of an open approach.
It is an open space for players to go in and farm, get loot, some special rewards, and explore the station even more.
So what I really like about the contested zones is the fact that they are right there next to the social space. It's really quick access, which I think is something that makes Pyro unique. You can be in the social space, you have your shops, you have the hub, you have the clinic, but the contested zone is right there, often through just a door, an airlock.
This will be very visually distinctive. It'll be very cold, there'll be ice along the walls. Some of these don't have the life support systems. The power will be generally out.
We have booby traps and mines. You'll hear the odd rustling inside the vents, with some potential surprises in it.
At some point you'll be facing multiple doors, and every door is giving you different things to fight, different rewards, and so you have to choose where to go. And some of them will be blocked through some puzzle elements, like key cards, to allow you to open the door and access the wing.
Some areas are more secure than others with better rewards. Other areas are highly contested, and there's more players coming into that space and more like an arena. We really want to take advantage of that, the vibe for Pyro of PvP, of lawlessness, of being out, sometimes alone.
So it sounds like to me, Aaron, you correct me if I think I'm wrong here, but it sounds like you are working for different factions or different gangs. Do you remember that from back in the day?
Well, but I did talk about back in the day, as you said, the fact that factions were fighting over stations. And I think this is kind of an outworking of that, where you could go in with your org, and I think this is that type of area. I think you could, if you control it, you're going to be able to get the resources. And so the longer you control an area, the more resources you'll harvest. But it's kind of that fighting for control of areas of a station. And I think this is that. Yeah, they've got that. This is that no man's land between gang.
Yeah, there's obviously something with they're fighting over, like it's like a refueling thing or something the station produces or something like that. But they obviously haven't told us what. Well, maybe they'll tell us in the video.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I hope it's not just it's there just to fight and loot just spawns because there's loot boxes always appearing in here. But yeah, you do get that sense that this is that to and fro type area where the gangs are fighting for control. I hope that's the case.
It's not what I really envisioned. I always thought it would be more like you're actually fighting over the entire station. That was kind of what was initially pushed. Maybe this is their first implementation. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. Or maybe this is a different one. So maybe there's one that's inside. Maybe there is one that's outside.
Well, you'll remember they did talk about stations. You'd fight for the station, and if you controlled it, the longer you controlled it, you could actually repair it. So I imagine, I don't see them completely changing it unless it's that that gameplay is totally not going to work. But I could see this being a first step, a tier 0 type approach.
It feels like a test. It really does.
And even if it's not, if they're doing tiered levels of this type of stuff, it's stuff that can appeal to everyone. This is a type of PvP gladiator arena zone, which you could, because it's right next to the social areas, you could go there. You know, I can imagine outside the social areas, it's going to be looking for a group, looking for a heal. You know,
well, it sounds a little bit like an extraction shooter if you think about it. You're going in with a team and trying to do something or get a bunch of resources and get out. That's an extraction shooter if I've ever heard one. So,
but it's also something that if you're at that station, you could organise a group and do it. It's one of those I can do it quickly. Whereas control the whole station battle, that's almost a weekend org type thing. So,
well, it comes down to how balanced it is too. Like if you and I go in, but then it turns out there's 40 people on the other team. Well, we're dead. You know, like So like how are they going to balance and stuff like that? So I'm curious to see how that'll all pan out. Yeah.
But hopefully you're there with your buddies to help back you up.
The zone inhabits various types of outlaws. These inhabitants are a constant population within this space, so they're not spawned via missions. They just exist there, and they will respawn over time. So this is a constant.
So it's that's PvE.
PvE/PvP.
Okay, interesting. So it's sounding more and more like an extraction shooter. All right.
Constantly inhabited space with a constant flow of challenges. It also inhabits creatures. Whilst we currently only have Copions, we are also thinking about expanding that potentially in the future.
The ends could, you could be fighting bosses.
A boss fight?
Yes, we would definitely want bosses. They could be guarding the best loot. They could be mission-based bosses that spawn as well. So whether these boss fights come to the contested zones or not, in 4.0 or beyond, is still up for development, but I would personally really like to see that kind of thing added to contested zones to make them feel special.
So definitely hearing. This is tier 0.
Yeah.
And we're hoping and thinking we'll get more in.
It's screaming extraction shooter. And and for those of you that don't kind of go outside the Star Citizen ecosystem, so to speak, the people at Crytek, which a lot of people at Frankfurt come from, they worked on Hunt Showdown, which is an extraction shooter. So there is a tie.
I was going to say it's very much like Hunt Showdown, where you're fighting the mobs in the game, but you're also fighting against the other teams.
Yeah,
and you've got the boss mobs as well. It almost is. Yeah, it does sound so much like Hunt Showdown. The more I think about it, I'm going, it's.
As soon as I started saying bosses and stuff, I just started thinking of one of those space crabs loose in the cargo hold or something, and it's
imagine they've already got copiums in there.
Yeah.
And we're hoping we can add more. Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be really interesting, or someone in a power loader or a Titan suit would be kind of cool too. So I can totally see the creatures that they've used and all the enemies they've talked about in the last decade that they could pull in to use as bosses.
And you could see, some gang has decided, we're going to try and screw you up because you've taken over our area. We're going to bring in a Boreal Stalker and shove it into that area. To screw you up. Yeah.
You can also see how this kind of leads into the big game hunting and bounty hunting. Like it's all similar tied in mechanics, like hunting someone. If you've ever played Hunt Showdown, you'll know what I'm talking about. There is a hunting mechanic in that, and that is very close to what to bounty hunting. So I can see why this is a good test.
I could see even high grade bounties like PvP bounties being in these areas as well.
Yep.
That everyone's going to be trying to get.
Yep.
And because you're after it, it's going to be almost like golden ticket type. Get the ticket and get the ship. Well, get the bounty and
last ditch effort, hide in there, and they've got to come after you, and they risk their life as well. So if you're so I could see that easily being just expanded and blown out. So all right,
interesting. So we're adding contested zones for 4.0 really to capitalize on the atmosphere, the lawlessness, having players compete with one another, where there's really that tension of getting that loot out of there, but having to fight your way to do it, fight your way in, fight your way out.
This is all PvP. So you get.
Also, looks like there's different mini objectives there. Like with the, I just started to realize you could literally take all the little objectives that they've talked about over the years. That's really interesting. So you'll never know what you're going to get. Like you could have, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. All right.
Be careful and always be watching out for other players.
Sounds like a meat grinder.
It could be a meat grinder, especially being in Pyro with the PvP aspect. That's something that we are designing towards. Players may choose to go in to hunt other players, which I think adds a really interesting element to, because not only are you wary of the traps, the puzzles, but you have to kind of be wary, watch your back, ambushes from players, that kind of stuff.
For the social core, we've left the green zones so that people can still have an enjoyable social experience. So you don't have to worry about getting ganked every 2 minutes by other players, at least for the social space.
Unlike the global events that you know, such as Siege of Orison or Overdrive, these are spaces that always exist and that you can always go into.
Loot that you've already gotten is going to come back. The time door that we have is timed based off of the world. So you have a really huge incentive to stay there, to keep holding your ground, to really make this your space as long as you can before other people take it from you. And I think that that's one of the things that's really exciting to me about bringing this to Pyro.
So I'm trying to think of how they're going to kind of force people together. And the only, like, the way they're describing it is like the longer you're there, the more money you make, so to speak, right? That's what I'm hearing. So the only thing I can think of is, do you remember when you'd be doing like a mission and it would then give a counter mission to someone to turn up? So it's like, it's almost like it's going up in stars or something, like in Grand Theft Auto, and it's like it comes up on someone else's hard, rank 5 stars, go take these guys out and we'll give you a heap of money. That's the only thing I can think of, unless you can think of something else.
No, it reminds me of Daox, take the keeps, and the longer you held the keep, the more resources or prestige you got, and other secrets would try and take it.
You're alive. You're alive and showing.
I know. I'm going to disappear and get that alarm because it's driving me nuts.
All right.
Back in a minute.
Awkward silence. Awkward silence. All right, I'll keep going without him.
Pyro has a number of asteroid clusters. They are the newer, larger asteroid clusters, so they should look and feel very different to the ones in Stanton.
Asteroid bases, for us, are really trying to take advantage of our universe better in terms of the locations that we have. Space is big, space is massive, but for our game, often we don't take as much usage of it as we should. We're taking procedural asteroids and we're carving these locations into it. And we're really providing a lot of variety in the gameplay in a form factor of space.
What about you, Algared? But that told me this is how we're going to redo Grimhex. That's that's what I just heard when they get around to redoing that one. So yeah, man.
And Levski and
yeah. Well, again, it's like you and I have said, and I'm pretty sure it's standardized at this point. They, you know, with the room system, anything's a container, so they're just a container now.
And they just you're right. They're just containers, and as they go on and build out how they do containers, it's just constantly rebuilding and refocusing and.
Lots of new art assets, though, is what I'm seeing since last year. So it's good to see they've expanded that tile set, so to speak. But yeah.
Essentially, we're utilizing the station interior set that we have created, and we're wrapping them around an asteroid, a big asteroid that allows us to be a lot more versatile with the kit that we have and create some interesting layouts for you.
Asteroid Base gives us the opportunity to create missions where you can be in space, then you have to go on the interior to continue the mission. We made a little twist of the bunker, little space where we can have some missions, but in space.
sometimes we could start with ship combat. You could have heavily defended areas on the outside. You could be engaging enemies outside on the landing pad.
Some of them even have copion infestations.
That should be fun.
That should be fun.
Asteroid bases are not just for combat. Because they're procedural asteroids, one of the things that's really cool about them is we can have multiple routes into these locations. So players can EVA and enter through a vent hatch. You could find your way in through a hangar. You could go straight through the front door. But there's a lot of room for exploration, finding loot that's been hidden there with loot crates. And
very big Aliens vibe all of a sudden, you know, the whole, hey, let's go explore this research facility. What could possibly go wrong?
Yep. And even in the contested spaces, they were talking, you know, things that things popping out of the vents and
bosses and stuff,
creatures and bosses, and so you got that. You don't want to come into a room and find a whole pile of eggs.
Essentially a cross-pollination. And again, that's almost how we've seen that in the past, where they build these things independently and then they start to mesh them together. And that's essentially the new mission system, as we'll see, I'm sure, when they get to that.
And find certain items that are important for you that you want to use to progress through Pyro, things that you haven't seen before in Stanton.
Can you tell us what that is?
No, I don't want to spoil it.
As a baseline, we wanted to bring Pyro up to par with all the content that we already have in Stanton, but also make it unique. We believe that with the addition of contested zones and asteroid stations and all the other little pieces will give us unique aspects that really make it feel different from Stanton.
We're really looking forward to you.
One thing I'm noticing, Aaron, I don't know if you're noticing, just the shots across the board, the graphic level has just kind of gone up another notch. And I don't mean that as in it's Pyro. I just mean you can tell those new rendering pipelines are coming in, and just all these shots today are just on another level that they've gone to, just across the board. But yeah,
and I could see like.
Well, look at that shot there. Look at the lighting. Look at the mood, and that's just a single light, and it just well, okay, the one main light, and there's ones in the background. But you get my point, right? It's just at a different level than it was previously.
But I can also see those procedurally generated bases, so those asteroid bases. You find one of those, I could imagine, you know, people could establish themselves in there. You know, once they control it. That becomes an org base you fight over. If another org decides to boot you out of there, you end up fighting for it, and it could give you access to trade routes, you know. Or
well, essentially they're like in the middle of space outposts, aren't they? So they're a different variation on that. And again, you go back to outposts. What is a variation of merging those? You have the outpost on the surface of the asteroid, and then you have the internals as well. So so I'm expecting to see that at some point too, where the asteroid's big enough. Well, it's kind of like Levski, you know, where it's like more of a planetoid. But I'm talking like between Levski and the asteroid. You know what I mean? Like one where you could kind of have a base on the surface, and then it's got you know where I'm going. That's the next level, but between the two.
Yeah, I remember. I can't remember who it was who said it, but it was basically bases are, you know, planetary bases and outposts are basically just the same as space stations because they're rooms.
Yeah,
we can build it on the surface. We can build it in space. It's just a room system.
I have the man's face in my head, but I can't remember his name. But I know who you're talking about. Yeah. All right.
Finally getting your hands on the full experience of the stations. There's been a lot of effort put into them. There's a lot more diversity now inside and outside of the stations, both in terms of visuals and design.
Asteroid bases and contested zones for us are two really exciting new location types that we're bringing to the fans for Pyro. It's not a global event, so it's long term. It's always going to be there. You can come back, get new cool stuff, advance your progression, and have fun with your friends and your party, your orgs, and, you know, have a great time in Pyro.
What else did we learn this week? Well, we learned that Rough and Ready have cornered the market on space stations in the Pyro system, and that green zones are in place to make the experience in station social areas a bit more manageable for players. That does not extend to the new contested zones, where chaos and carnage will reign supreme, and those who can temper it, solve their puzzles, collect their treasures, and escape will be rewarded for their efforts. And that asteroid bases should allow for a combined arms assault to explore what's contained within, and Christopher doesn't want me to say just yet. We want to make sure it'll work the way we want it to. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Don't forget to vote in the Ship Showdown when that happens. Don't forget to keep testing 3.24 and 4.0 on PTU when that happens. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development when that happens, and we'll see you all here next week for Fire.
Looking forward to it. I'm a bit of an arsonist though, so here. No. Alright. That was
interesting.
Yeah, very, very interesting. One thing I'm noticing there was some really cool sounds, and the gun sounds are now sounding a bit dated. That was the other thing I took out of that. That might be time to update a bit some of those gun sounds, because some of the background sounds sounded amazing, but the guns just sound a little weird now. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they're just a bit flat. And they almost feel like they're always firing in space. They're not firing. I don't know. It's because they're probably futuristic guns. They just sound like there's probably only so many different ways you can do lasers and stuff. But they just, I don't know. They just felt out of place now. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they need an update. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if I'm being.
Maybe the areas where we're hearing them was more in areas where it was no atmosphere, so it was muted anyway. I also liked there were a couple of scenes where they showed the vents or the air conditioning tubing, and the material was rippling, and
you
know, so you're seeing that type of texture.
Definitely gone back and added things. So like even the laser trip mines, they'd added the laser mines from what we saw at Squadron last year, so even that text come across, so things like that. What would you like to hear from people in the comments after seeing that, Algared?
Well, what are you looking forward to? What do you hope the contested zones bring?
Yeah.
What do you hope the asteroids bring? Do they bring another level of contested zone?
Yeah. I think I kind of agree with Algared on that one. I'd kind of say, what gameplay do you see that adding to the game? And you know, is that something you're interested in? Because the other thing is, I'm going to say it because it's kind of obvious if we haven't said it, and I don't think we have. Is it's another combat thing. It's not. It's not another mining or new gameplay feature. It is kind of like a spin on something that we've already got. So I don't know how well it's going to be received, honestly.
Yeah.
It might be better than like I'm seeing a lot of people that play Arena Commander. Essentially, that's almost what it feels like, bringing those Arena Commander features into the actual game. It's the first step of actually doing that. And I think that is kind of good, to bring it out of Arena Commander and actually into the game, but it does feel a bit more of the same. We'll have to wait and see how that goes.
The other thing I was hearing in those contested spaces is there are those that are fairly low key. The rewards are less, but they're I think there'd be ones that are more appeal to PvP players or PvE players, where the ones that are, as you ramp up the rewards, you'll get more of the, you know, I suppose the elite players or the good player, you know, or the PvP. I'm just in it for the reward. I'm in it for the top armor. They'll be gravitating towards those ones, and so you'll have different levels or different grades. You know, this is graded for a 2-man team. This is graded for a 5-man team. I can see that type of.
It's definitely going to have a skill gap. I think that's what you're describing. I think there are some people that are just going to go, I'm not good at first person, I'm out. And then there'll be other people that just totally dominate that space. But I think that's going to become more part of the course as we go along. Like you'll get someone that's just so good at mining that that's all they do, because they just make so much money there. It's ridiculous.
But even in those contested spaces, I can see people who say, I'm no good at PvP, but I'm okay with PvE, and going into the lower areas and being able to to function. So I think there's areas that are even in those contested areas that are going to appeal to possibly the PvE players as well as as it ramps up more to the PvP players. And I can see there'd be those who, just like in every MMO, like clubbing seals and go to the basic areas and camp the green zones and do all of those things but how much can people enjoy doing that?
That's what I mean. I'm wondering how much of it's going to translate, because as I said, it feels a little bit like like Arena Commander, and then you add an extraction shooter element. And I'm just curious because it's almost like a third old, third modified, and a third new. So
in a sense, it reminds me of Diok, like Dark Age of Camelot. Dark Age of Camelot, you had your PvE area where you leveled up your character to and that was really just leveling up your character so you can go do PvP. And then the PvP area kind of had this element of PvE/PvP, and the further you went away from the gate, you encountered more people.
I think what you're describing
feels like that.
I think what you're describing is you have to have different things in the game that different people enjoy, and that's what I'm trying to. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I just think there's going to be people that are drawn to this, and there's definitely going to be people that are not drawn to this. Just like there are people drawn to Arena Commander, and there are people not drawn to Arena Commander. So, I'm interested to see how it takes off. I think what I'm seeing though is the Arena Commander people are the people that are going to really take to this like a fish to water.
And it really does pick up that idea that I think I was saying earlier, but I'm not sure I said it clear enough. That there are going to be elements there that seem to be appeal to those people who don't have that much time. They can get their team, go in, do a quick mission, come out, and then it's also going to be elements that appeal to those people who've got.
Well, that's kind of like why Arena Commander's been so appealing, because you just drop in and you're there. Again, you can just be sitting at the station and then drop in, do what you want to do, drop out, bed log, and you're done. So yeah, I get it. All right, then. With that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. And thank you to everyone that went extra mile on Patreon at the end of the video. He's been Old Man Hurston.
He's been the Executor, and we're out of here. And I'll just move over this way. Hang on. Nope.
You're totally off center.
There you go.
Yeah.
I am off. I am way off center. It's good. When I went to kill the alarm, that's what blew me.
See you, citizens.
So, take care, guys.